All right, as promised, I'm going to now bring in Professor Dirk Kotzé, as I promised earlier on, Professor of Political Sciences at UNISA. And of course, we're going to be talking about the appointment of Professor Cachalia in the swearing in officially of Professor Cachalia into his acting ministerial role of police. So, Professor Kotzé, it's a pleasure, sir. So Professor Cachalia has been sworn in officially, making history there in being, of course, the first minister under Ramaphosa's administration to be appointed from outside of Parliament. And after all the back and forths and even failed legal action, let's get your reaction on this development, sir.
Yes, I think this is a very unique situation. It's the first time that we have an acting minister appointed in this way and not a permanent minister. I think, as you indicated, this is something which has now has been in the court yesterday, the Constitutional Court. They have not dismissed it, but referred it back now to the provincial courts, High Court. So I think in that sense, there is a space for Professor Cachalia in order to settle down and start as minister. What he indicated after his swearing in is that he does not have necessarily no new plan, but that he has one of his main responsibilities is to work with this commission of inquiry that has been established by the president, and then also to revitalize aspects of the police service that have been in the past not functioning very, very effectively. One thinks, for example, about the crime intelligence service, which is currently in quite a serious situation.
Absolutely, Prof. We're going to try and, of course, continue with this interview. I can understand there's a little bit of reverb on the audio, but let's try and continue. How do you then see him being able to discharge his duties, Professor, especially considering how he came about this role? I mean, there's so much public scrutiny, mistrust, and over low confidence in the police as we await, of course, the Commission of Inquiry as well as the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee's probes.
Yes, I think one of the key issues for him would be is how to deal with the police service at provincial level. He is the former in Gauteng of community security, which is essentially the police at provincial level. And one of the most important functions of the national minister is how to coordinate the functions at provincial level, because that is really the services of the police are rendered. In that respect, I think he is in a unique situation because he has 5 years of experience of being at the provincial level. At the same time, he has been the chairperson of the Anti-Corruption Advisory Council. So this focus will be very much on the corruption that is being present in the police service. And then he is a lawyer by profession. It's actually his family is very prominent in fraternity. So I think there will be a strong approach from his side in order to make sure that the police service functions in a legal fashion, that all forms of unethical and illegal conduct are directly addressed, and therefore that the public trust in the police must be increased overall.
Prof, I'm really struggling to hear you, but I suppose we're going to try and continue with the interview. So what do you think should he prioritize as he steps into this role? And do you think he'll be able then in this short space of time, or the amount of time that is going to be at the helm of the police services, going to be able to restore faith into the entity by ensuring that he implements those much needed reforms in order to steer back the entity into a trusted one?
Yes, I think what is his challenges will be is as someone who's relatively outside, and he hasn't been inside the ANC as a member of Parliament or as a member of the National Executive Committee at the moment. So he is regarded as from within, coming from the ANC, but not at the moment sort of contaminated, if I can use that by some of the problems of the ANC. So he has a chance that some of the former ANC ministers who have been ministers of police in order to deal with some of the very important issues. On top of that is now the Commission of Inquiry. And if the Commission of Inquiry is even partly successful, with what they are charged to do, then it can be seen as the very early stages of the turning of the police services. But I think what is absolutely important is to make sure that the top structure of the police is seen as acting in an ethical way, that corruption, if it is present, is addressed as quickly and as severely as possible, and that the possibility of collusion with criminal elements, with syndicates and so on, that is addressed and again is acted on in a very forceful way. I think if we can achieve with that, then the other aspects of the police and reform of the police services can follow later on. But that's, I would say, the beginning of building more trust in the police in general.
And Prof, maybe very quickly, let's look forward a bit. Say the Commission does in fact find the allegations against him are in fact true and he's ultimately dismissed. Do you foresee Kachalia's appointment then being permanent? And what about the current deputies? Because this has been another very topical point in this process, right? Leading to questions around the need for these roles if they can't even take over in such instances.
Yes, I think it's very likely that President Kachalia will continue as minister. It won't make sense to appoint him for a temporary period now and then appoint someone else again as minister. So I think once he has been there for a substantial time, a number of months, then it's almost inevitable that he will continue as minister. The role of the deputy ministers is that there is a tradition, I would almost call it a protocol, that exists within the country from a very early stage, and that is the deputy ministers never act as ministers. So other ministers can act as a minister, in this case of police services, but not deputy ministers. And because that will amount to a promotion from minister to from deputy minister to minister, and then to go back to that of a deputy minister is something which is simply not happening.
All right, Prof, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your input this afternoon. That is Professor Dirk Kotzé. He is a political sciences professor at the University of South Africa, on Professor Cachalia being officially sworn in as, of course, the acting minister of police. All right.